we've seen a couple of situations with that. One more recently with Digital Currency Group and Gemini, where the SEC comes in after the fact. But how does that help the users who can't access their funds from Gemini earn? Finding Gemini just takes money out of their pockets to help restore those funds. So it just seems backwards. And the other aspect to this is Sam Bankman-Fried, of course, was meeting with the SEC and I think the CFTC as well. So I'm just looking at him like, where did this all go wrong? Because he came in as he was encouraged to by, folks at the SEC come in and talk to us. Well, why wasn't there due diligence done on the regulator side? And maybe Brian, you being part of the CFTC before can shed some light on that. Take us behind the curtain. How did it not catch what was happening?
Yeah, so I can speak from my experience and my awareness of the CFTC process. I'm not aware of what was happening at the SEC, and I think it's important for that to, see the light of day so that people know exactly what kind of conversations happen, what was being advocated for, and what was being considered. I think, if like one-off, regulatory exemptions that could basically have created a de facto monopoly, were under discussion. I think that would be something that would be very disturbing.
Yeah.
And I hope that's not the case, but I think that whatever was happening, I think there needs to be some light shed on that. From my involvement at the CFTC, FTX and SBF's, I think, touch point to the agency basically came right after I left, when they purchased a regulated derivatives exchange, a CFTC regulated derivatives exchange known as LedgerX, that became FTX US Derivatives. And once they purchased that licensed entity, which was a futures marketplace, a swaps marketplace, and that had the CFTC version of a broker dealer called a future commission merchant, I believe. No, it wasn't a future commission. It was a DCO, a clearing organization that would clear those products. Then it was part of the regulatory fold. And just like any regulated entity, I would expect and I would want an agency and regulators to have ongoing dialogue with those that are operating regulated entities, so that the agency understands what they're doing, the firms understand what the agency's concerns are or the direction that it's going. If there are rules, or guidance that the agency is thinking about issuing, that it accepts all kinds of feedback from all various kinds of entities about that. And so, that doesn't necessarily surprise me. And on its surface, it doesn't necessarily, to me, seem in any way inappropriate. In fact, I think it's the opposite. I think it's absolutely appropriate for the agency to seek to have those conversations with regulated entities. And I think it's also important to note, I think, into your question of where did this go wrong, or could it have been seen more clearly? There apparently was a line between FTX US/FTX.com, and the CFTC regulated derivatives entities. In fact, part of the CFTC rule set for derivatives exchanges and clearing organizations is that they do segregate customer funds, for customers themselves. And they have real-time auditing capabilities to ensure that those customer funds are being segregated. And that's come online because of issues that the agency had seen and that the futures industry had experienced, where those customer funds had not been segregated. We saw that in the blow up of MF Global. We saw that in the blow up of Revco. And so the agency spent a lot of time developing capabilities to verify in real time that customer assets were segregated. And as a result of that, the U.S. derivative entities that were regulated by the CFTC, were solvent and are now being sold. I think they were just cleared for sale in the bankruptcy process. So, could more have been done to try to unearth and uncover connections between FTX U.S. derivatives and other entities? I'm not sure. Could more have been done on the CFTC side to explore in more detail FTX.com? Possibly. But I think, to the extent that FTX.com was engaging US customers, which apparently it was, I think that that's kind of an open question for all regulators.